Hi guys, this is Pestillion. Welcome to another Escape from Tarkov video. Today we're going to do a complete overview of all the passive skills within the game of Tarkov. And I'm going to just touch on what the skills entail, how they level, and which ones you should be focusing on. So let's crack straight into it. Now before I touch on any specific skills in detail, I'm just going to say that I'm not going to explain how to exploit these skills into leveling super fast, just how they should be leveled within the game in general. There are methods that you'll be able to level up a skill really quickly, but they will change over time. And so it's better to have a good understanding on what the skill does and how it's meant to be leveled within the game before worrying about if you can level up super quick and stuff like that. So let's move into our first skill, Endurance. Now the Endurance skill is based on how far you can run before you run out of stamina, as well as when you're looking down the scope and trying to effectively ADS, which is aiming down the scope or sight. How that works is as you're zoomed in, it'll slowly tick it down, and therefore you won't be able to sprint again. So the higher level endurance you have, the farther you'll be able to run, or the longer you'll be able to hold the scope up for. So effectively increases stamina, decreases the jump stamina drain, increases breathing hold time, as well as decreasing breath recovery time. So how do you level endurance? Effectively the way you will level endurance is from when you start sprinting to when you finish sprinting, the distance covered will level your endurance. So that being said, the higher level endurance you have, the more stamina technically you have, or the slower it decreases, and therefore you can run farther, which will help level it faster. Now this isn't excelled by being overweight, so don't worry about that. That will be covered in the strength. So moving on to our next skill, strength. Strength is probably one of the more important skills in the game, but it's gone through a lot of, let's say, mixes and mashes, how it should be implemented and leveled over the last, say, 3 to 6 months. It's still probably not perfect within the game, but it's still a high priority for a lot of people. So what strength gives you is you'll have increased carried weight before you're actually going to get drained faster for being overweight. Your sprint speed will be faster, you'll be able to jump higher, you can throw stuff further, and you'll be able to hit stuff harder with your melee weapon. So obviously this has a big impact, particularly that sprint speed. Now there's multiple ways you can level strength. Effectively, by throwing grenades will give you about 0.1 of a skill point. Hitting a person with a melee weapon, breaching doors will give you skill points as well, and finally, moving whilst overweight. So this is probably one of the more important skills you'll probably come across within the game at the moment, but I think there's going to be a lot of changes with this in the future. Next we have Vitality. Now this skill is a bit of a basic skill within the game, and it decreases the chance of bleeding when taking damage. So as you level it up and you take damage, it'll reduce the chance of bleeding when taking that hit, as well as it says decreases the chance of death by losing a limb. Now previously, when you had a black limb and you got hit in that limb again, you would die instantly. But they've changed that out of the game. And as far as I understand, this part of the skill doesn't have any effect. And this skill is actually leveled by taking damage. So every time you take a hit and you lose a bit of life, that's how Vitality is leveled. The next skill we have is Health. Now Health will decrease the chance of getting a fracture, as well as decreases energy consumption. And finally, decreases the dehydration rate. This skill's pertinent for one of the tasks from Therapist, requires you to get level 7 health. And I get questioned a fair bit, how do I level health? It's pretty much the same way that you level strength, by running around overweight. There is other more cheesy ways you can do it, but effectively taking any sort of damage will also help you level health. Next thing we have is Stress Resistance. Now there used to be a really cheesy way where you used to dehydrate yourself and then heal through the dehydration, and that would level your stress resistance. This has been taken out of the game. And effectively, the higher level stress resistance you have is, you'll see when you're running, say when you've got a black limb, and there'll be a little pain marker come up, and I think you'll get like a bit of a shudder as well. That'll get reduced by the higher level stress resistance you have. As well as that when you're really low in health, and you've got the red circle coming around and everything's getting zoomed in, that also gets reduced the higher level stress resistance you have. So at max level, that's pretty much totally gone. So that's something you can look forward to with that. However, this is something that will just level just with the same as taking damage with Health and Vitality. Next we have Metabolism. Now this used to be a really important skill, because with Metabolism, there's actually a skill part that says decreases the rate of forgetting physical skills. Now all the ones I've spoken about so far, plus one more, is all your physical skills. And so everyone would try and level their Metabolism fast, like straight off the bat. So the way people would do is they'd buy a heap of food, go into raids, eat it, and that would level it that way. That's now kind of been changed, and probably the best way to level it is just eat and drink everything you find inside a raid, and you'll slowly go up. However, the only main effect it has is over your dehydration rate, which will only really take effect once your stomach has been blown out. So effectively, if you want to level this up, probably the fastest way to do it is just eat and drink everything you find in the raid. However, I'm sure there are ways that if you really wanted to level it up faster, there would be. The last skill we have under the physical skills is immunity. However, this skill is currently not implemented at all in the game. Now moving over to the mental skills. First we have attention. Attention is the rate you can search a loot box or a person and search in their pockets, for example, and how fast you do it, as well as that how good a loot you'll find. Now, if you find searching a PMC, it's not going to make any difference. But if you're looting a box or a scav, for example, a scav backpack, the higher level attention you have, the better loot you'll find. And this has become really pertinent, and it's probably one of the main skills I'm actually focusing more on leveling now. As I can do a shoreline run and probably find anywhere between 3 and 5 silencers a run, whereas when I first reset my account, I wouldn't even find a silencer in the whole raid. So this has had a big impact on the kind of loot you find, and I really do suggest leveling this up. Now, for attention and charisma, which is the next skill I'm going to talk about, I've actually made a standalone video, which you can find the link below in the description. So now moving on to charisma. With charisma, you will actually find that there's no implementation of this in the game currently, minus the fact that you need level 10 for a Ragman task. Effectively, the way charisma is leveled is any loot experience gained from looting either a container or a person, and go from looting from the container itself to your backpack or your person, that experience from dragging it across will actually be the charisma leveling. It's about 200 experience points per skill point. However, in saying that, there's actually no other point in the game for charisma at this point in time, but it's required for one of the tasks. The next skill we have is perception. And the way perception works is when you're running around, you'll actually see a white dot come up in the center of the screen when you're going to loot an item. And the higher level it is, the closer that white dot will be to the item that you can loot. At max level, you don't even need to be facing the lootable item. The dot will just come up when you're near it. And that's the elite perk. To be honest, I actually haven't noticed any difference between the hearing distance from leveling it up, but I'm sure there's probably some sort of implementation of that taking place. Now, the next two skills, memory and intellect, don't have any place in the game at the moment. Even though you're actually leveling memory at the moment, you're not decreasing the skill or having a skill rollback from time, where they previously had this implemented in the game. However, Nikita decided to, or the devs decided to remove this, as a lot of people were complaining about it, because pretty much you were losing, a fair few skill points per night, even with just for not playing for 8 hours. So they decided they'd actually take that out of the game. I think this will be implemented later, but for now it's not part of the game. So moving on to the weapon skills. Pistol, SMG, assault rifles, shotguns, snipers, DMRs are all still currently working and leveling up as per it's meant to. However, for example, revolvers aren't implemented, as well as LMGs, HMGs, launchers, and underbarrel launchers. So these are currently not leveling up as they're not in the game yet. So in saying that, all these weapon skills, as you level them, will increase your reload speed. They'll have a weapon swap buff and reduces the weapon recoil. Now, I have not noticed any single weapon swap buff. However, it might mean that you can actually switch between the weapons slightly faster, but it doesn't actually, there's no description and no one seems to know what it actually means. Now, I've noticed that most of these skills go up in some sort of way by how many times you hit a target while using those items. Some skills seem to go up a lot faster than others. Sniping, because you had to get level 7 for one of the tasks for Peacekeeper, it was about 0.66 skill points per hit. Around there, maybe 0.5 of a skill point per hit. Whereas assault rifles, it was considerably different. So, it depends on which one it is, and they'll level up over time. These are something you're probably not going to be able to really focus on, but it's just good to know that they actually do level and how they level a little bit more detailed than just saying they do level. Now with the throwable skill, it will level up as you throw grenades and effectively just gives you the further throw distance as well as requires less energy to throw grenades. Next we've got recoil control. I've also done a video on this. However, it's kind of changed a little bit since I made that video. Max level will give you 30% less recoil, and it still levels up very similar to what I did in my video. However, because now you have to reload magazines a lot slower due to another skill, it's probably recommended, I would recommend at least, every time you finish a raid, what I do is I just shoot off the rest of my rounds. That way you're slowly leveling up recoil control a little bit faster than you would normally, but you're not just going into a raid and just sitting there for an hour shooting off all your rounds and reloading magazines. As well as that, with the large increase in ammunition price, deliberately going into raids to level this skill up would probably be almost detrimental to your economy, as it costs a lot of money now for ammunition. Alright, so next we've got mag drills. Now with mag drills, every time you level it up, it increases the speed in which you can unload or load a magazine, and also how fast you can load a magazine from in and out of your rifle. And lastly, checking the ability you can check the contents of the magazine for when you do Alt-T to check your ammo. Now this is leveling up really slow, but effectively every time you unload and load a magazine, it will level up. However, if you sat there for an entire raid loading and unloading a magazine, it would take about an hour to get 10 skill points from the quick guesstimate from doing it for about 10 minutes. And it's really not worth doing that, because like to even get say level 10, you'd probably have to do this for about 24 hours, and that's only going to give you like I think about 6% faster reload and unload speed of a magazine. So I wouldn't suggest going out of your way to do this, but just as you progress through the game, it will level up. Alright guys, now I know this was just a basic overview of all the skills within the game, and it's targeted for people that are more new to the game and a little bit unsure on how they all work. If you guys have any questions, feel free to write them down in the comments below, and I'll make sure I try and get to every single one of them, as I know there's a lot of people trying to learn the game, and I'm hoping this video will be able to help some of you. So lastly guys, if you like this video, give it a thumbs up, subscribe for future content, and I'll see you next time.